Out with the Hippocratic Oath, in with the cult mantra. I want to start by showing you this video of medical students pledging themselves to a cult. I'm then going to show you another example of a cult. The purpose of this is to, one, shed a light on this, but I'm hoping this can help be a wake-up call to people who are not paying attention. I hear quite a bit from many people saying that they try to share these stories. They try to share the conversations from Timcast IRL, but people are unwilling to read the news. Let's play this video and start off very quickly to show you exactly what's going on.
With gratitude, we, the students of the University of Minnesota Twin Cities Medical School class of 2026, stand here today among our friends, families, peers, mentors, and communities who have supported us in reaching this milestone. Our institution is located on Dakota land. Today, many Indigenous people throughout the state, including Dakota and Ojibwe, call the Twin Cities home. We also recognize this acknowledgement is not enough. We commit to uprooting the legacy and perpetuation of structural violence deeply embedded within the healthcare system. We recognize inequities built by past and present traumas rooted in white supremacy, colonialism, the gender binary, ableism, and all forms of oppression. As we enter this profession with opportunity for growth, we commit to promoting a culture of anti-racism, listening, and amplifying voices for positive change. We pledge to honor all Indigenous ways of healing that have been historically marginalized by Western medicine. Knowing that health is intimately connected to our environment, we commit to healing our planet and communities. We vow to embrace our role as community members and strive to embody cultural humility. We promise to continue restoring trust in the medical system and fulfilling our responsibilities as educators and advocates. We commit to collaborating with social, political, and additional systems to advance health equity. We will learn from the scientific innovations made before us and pledge to advance and share this knowledge with peers and neighbors. We recognize the importance of being in community with and advocating for those we serve.
So, cult, let me ask you, my friends. I look at that, and that is a cult meeting. It is the leader standing before the crowd and then having them all read some kind of ideological ethos. But I'll tell you why I say it's a cult. Because of this line: to honor all Indigenous ways of healing historically marginalized by Western medicine. All Indigenous ways of healing. If I were to advocate for Indigenous ways of healing on YouTube, I would be banned. Isn't that funny? Because that's medical misinformation. Are doctors now going to tell people perhaps to make tree bark tea? There you go. Tea bark. Oh, that works too. Because I believe, doesn't aspirin come from a tree bark? Now, of course, we've ultimately made pills that do things. But are we going to talk about smoking certain plants or other Indigenous ways of healing? Not all of which are scientifically sound. We have, as a human civilization, advanced beyond archaic forms of medicine. We used to drink mercury. Yeah, we don't do that anymore. It doesn't work. That was the treatment at the time. It's a cult. And your doctors in Minnesota, this is what they are pledging to. Now, of course, many people have said to me, Tim, I don't trust my doctor. No, hold on. If your doctor is doing this, I get it. Find a doctor who isn't. Find a doctor who says they're going to provide you the best medical care possible. But this is the current state of the cult. It's in our institutions. This needs to be stopped. Dr. Robert Englander, the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Education at the University of Minnesota's Medical School, led the class of 2026 in a woke pledge at their white coat ceremony on August 19th. Here's what you do. If you live in Minnesota, if you know someone who lives in Minnesota, and you ever see a medical degree from this university, you tell them, no, thank you, and you leave. because they clearly are not prioritizing modern medicine. They're prioritizing equity over merit. But let's talk about the cult. Here's a video I want you to watch. It's an old video. I've played it before. I want people to understand what this really is.
About racism, anti-blackness, or violence. I will use my voice in the most uplifting way possible. And do everything in my power to educate my community. I will love my black neighbors the same as my white ones.
So this is a video that is showing
racism.
people sitting around in a park with their hands up, chanting along with an ideological mantra. I will love my neighbors. It's a cult. If you've never read or researched cults, it's a cult. That's a cult. And it's in our medical institutions. And I hope you're paying attention to how this manifests. When they talk about health equity and you go to the doctor, don't be surprised when they are not trying to save you. Why? Well, you're white. Don't you know what equity means? So what happens when you go to the doctor and they say, based on your race, they will not provide you certain medical treatment? This is why I say, if you see someone you go to the doctor and they have a degree, I don't care where you are. If someone's got a degree from Minnesota, University of Minnesota, you should get up and walk out. In fact, you should ask every doctor, where did you go to school? You should look into the school and make sure your doctor is going to give you the right medical care. I mean, what if your doctor started prescribing, I don't know, unhinged medications or, medications that YouTube says are bad, right? How do you know? You've got to do that research. And here we go, baby. Let me tell you how this manifests. From the Daily Mail, Miami sex change surgeon who dubs herself Dr. Titus Deletus is reported to Consumer Watchdog for deceptively luring vulnerable teens into transgender operations with gimmicky TikTok video blitz. We don't allow the use of cartoons for selling cigarettes because it targets children, so they say. That's why they got rid of the Camel from Camel cigarettes, I guess. So was that it? They were like, your cartoon is targeting kids. This is a doctor who goes on TikTok and targets children and tells them that, they can have their body parts removed. This is what happens when you have a cult. Here's the story. A Florida-based plastic surgeon who dubs herself Dr. Titus Deletus, a glib reference to breast removal surgery. Hey, wait a minute. This is child sex changes. What was that? Your neighbors, your friends, your family tell you it's not happening? Please show them this story. Tell them it's happening. And you know what? I'm at the point where, look, if it's a family member, I just get mad. I tell you, I say this a lot, like, don't get mad. Just try and introduce them to the stuff. But at a certain point, you need to just tell your family members, if you are unwilling to stand up against doctors who are giving children sex change operations, then perhaps we are at an impasse and there's no moving forward. A complaint to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, obtained by the Daily Mail says that Dr. Sive Gallagher, it's pronounced Sid Hibhe, it's Irish. So I got to say, I'm part Irish. I don't understand why, if we are speaking English, we would spell a word that doesn't translate properly. Like, when we don't use, Japanese characters to write out someone's name when we're speaking English. We write it using, I think it's called Romanji, Roman characters to phonetically pronounce a name of someone whose name is Japanese. We don't use the Cyrillic alphabet. So why don't we just say Dr. Sive Gallagher, like S-I-V? She runs the Gallagher Plastic Surgery. She runs Gallagher Plastic Surgery in Miami, talks up the benefits and downplays the risks of sexual reassignment surgeries for children. It accuses Dr. Gallagher, who says she carries about 400 to 500 gender affirmation surgeries a year, of using catchy videos with pop music backing tracks on social media platforms as marketing a gimmick to attract vulnerable and impressionable minors to everything from breast removals to bottom surgery. And this is in Miami, you say? I believe there is a Ron DeSantis who resides in this state. What are they doing? The clinic said in a statement that the videos aim to educate and celebrate a marginalized group, and that Dr. Gallagher has become a target of attacks and complaints because of her politically charged work with trans teens. For those experiencing gender dysphoria, transitioning with drugs and surgery can be life-saving. That's what the Daily Mail says. I don't know if that statement is backed up by anything, Daily Mail. Do you have anything to prove that assessment, or is that your opinion? Still, some experts warn against providing irreversible treatments to adolescents, pointing to growing numbers who come to regret their procedures, many of whom are permanently sterilized. Whether to allow young people to take puberty blockers, hormones, or undergo surgery has become a hot-button issue in America's culture wars, and Republican officials across the U.S. have sought to limit access to procedures. Here is a video of Dr. Cy Gallagher, sad, saying, just realize I only get to yeet 4 teats next week. Yo, that is psychotic. That's psychotic. She's sad that she can't amputate people's body parts. In what context has amputation ever been considered a good thing? Well, I guess here you go. But let me tell you my position. You know, I discovered something. If you entertain that parents sterilize their children, spay their daughters, and neuter their sons to prevent overpopulation, nobody's outraged. Nobody's outraged. Wow. We can have a Timcast IRL show where Seamus Coughlin of Freedom Tune says, I'm pro-life, and Media Matters writes it up saying, the bigot, oh, he opposes gay marriage. And then I can go on Twitter. I've done it like 6 times now. And tweet something like, please consider spaying and neutering your children to prevent overpopulation. Nobody cares. Not a single leftist complains. I can say things like, it's good that the left are aborting their children and sterilizing their children because it'll end overpopulation and stop climate change. They don't care. They literally don't care. It's kind of weird, isn't it? So I can say right now that when this doctor targets young people, she's primarily targeting the left. Now, of course, there are conservative children who get caught up in stuff like this, but conservative parents are an active barrier against this. So the tendency will be to kill and sterilize, abort liberal babies, killing babies. I don't know if YouTube appreciates that terminology, but it is to abort the babies of liberals, and it is to sterilize the children of liberals. Why is that something they're celebrating? The end result is going to be a conservative future. Now, I point that out, I guess. I guess they don't care. It's not considered offensive or outrageous to say, look how sad she is. Look how sad she is. She wants to amputate the breasts of children. Okay. What do we do? You know, abortion is a self-solving issue. The people who are pro-abortion are eliminating their children. I think it's terrible. I think it's wrong. But there you go. Dr. Gallagher, who taught at Indiana University before opening her business in 2020, has 273,000 followers on TikTok. Wow. Her unusual embrace of social media platforms has made her one of the most visible sex change surgeons in the U.S., as well as courting criticism from conservatives and some parents and doctors as the audience skew young. According to the complaint, Dr. Gallagher has released thousands of videos advertising her gender-affirming plastic surgeries, sex changes for children. Let's get it right. In a bid to convert them into patients. Her videos glamorize, romanticize, and valorize medical gender transition, says the complaint issued in February by GenSpect, a global network led by Stella O'Malley that flags the dangers of gender-affirming treatment for youths and other groups, sex change surgery, and amputation and sterilization. Come on, get it right. There's a tweet here from Christopher Rufo, I think. Oh, no, he's in the other article. It says, quote, as a practice that serves the transgender and non-binary community, it is not uncommon for us to be the target of attacks and complaints, the clinic said in an email to the Daily Mail, adding that the FTC did not appear to be pursuing the complaint. As well as being catchy, the videos explain the various types of surgeries that are available to those unhappy with the gender they were assigned at birth. Dr. Gallagher has said gender-affirming surgeries are essential for youngsters who may otherwise commit suicide. Yeah, we want to make sure these people don't. We want to make children don't take their lives. But kids take their lives or harm themselves for reasons we would often say are inane. High school drama. And we hear these stories about kids who take their own lives. You need to understand that children are impressionable and can be depressed over things that we as adults may see as irrelevant. There's a joke Family Guy did where it's like a high school, they're watching a high school drama, and then it's like, these problems are such serious things. High school matters, or something like that. Or it's like one of the kids says, let's always remember that, the problems we face here today in high school are the most important things ever in our lives. The joke being, you get older. Man, what I'll tell you was interesting? When I turned 21, so I'm, between the ages of, I've been playing music since I was a little kid. So I'm playing music shows, starting from when I'm around, 13 or so, playing in bands, do garage band stuff. And then when I was like 16 through 20, I'm playing cafes, open mic nights, and shows like that. And then I turned 21, and all of a sudden I could perform anywhere. And I realized there were substantially more venues that were 21 and up as opposed to what I was playing. And it was a weird feeling where all of a sudden the audience was old. I had been 20 years old playing music, and everyone there was around the same age as me. Why? Because older people were at bars, a dividing line between those 21 and those 20. And those who get fake IDs sometimes. But then all of a sudden I'm playing at bars and everyone's got 20 years on me. And I was like, man, that's so crazy. It felt like an entirely different world. That's what these kids don't understand, because they've not made that to that point, that the world is so completely different, that your formative years are microscopic relative to the rest of your life. And this psychopath, Sive Gallagher, is permanently altering children who don't have enough experience to understand what their life will be. So I oppose sex changes for kids. But I recognize that the end result is going to be the sterilization of the left. If that's what they want, I guess. I don't understand. That should be controversial. If conservatives, I guess not. I want to believe, I feel like coming out and saying that the sterilization of a political class is a bad thing. I feel like it should be a bad thing. It should be offensive to advocate for the sterilization of a political class of people. But for some reason, they accept it. They like it. They embrace it. Okay. I've commented on the posts of these liberals on Facebook, and they try and just push back and say, not all liberals are sterilizing their kids. And I was like, who said every single one was? I said, it's a matter of math. If you have 100 liberals and 100 conservatives, and the conservatives advocate for having babies and oppose abortion, they're more likely to have babies and not get abortions. The 100 liberals are going to advocate for sterilizing their kids and getting abortions and not even having kids in the first place. 50 years goes by. I'd say 20 years. There's now 250 Republicans, conservatives, because they had 2.5 kids. And the liberals who didn't have kids, now there's only 130. But let's say 50 years goes by. And you have death involved as well. People age and die. The conservatives are now around at 50 years, 400 or so conservatives, and the liberals who aren't replacing themselves are at 50. The number goes down. They're not reproducing enough to replace themselves. Now, some people have said, yeah, Tim, but they take the schools over. That's not working. Look at what's happening with all these school board meetings. Look at what happened when parents found out about what the schools were teaching. It's failing. Here's what I see. Based on current trends, which obviously could change. In the future, give it 30, 40 years, there will be a cult of millennial-aged individuals and some Gen Z, and they will be outliers. They will be a small fraction of the country's population, and everyone will view them as weirdo cultists. And they'll march around saying their stupid things about ideology. But I don't think it can persist into the younger generation, because the millennials aren't winning in schools, and they're not having kids. So what's the end result? It's fairly obvious. But here's what I warn you of. The ideology, it is desperately trying to expand. America's wokest degree, Wharton Business School, offers a $118,000 per year course in diversity, inclusion, and equity. The Die Cult. Okay. Waste your money, I guess, but the cult is trying to expand. Keep your kids out of these colleges. Take your kids out of these schools and homeschool them. and the future's yours. And that's why they're panicking so much. That's why the cult is so terrified of homeschooling and school choice. It's why they're so desperate to get colleges to be publicly funded. It's nothing about opportunity. It's about joining the cult. It's about going to the university and chanting blindly about psychotic, zealous cult ideology. It's about sitting on the ground in the park with your hands in the air, mindlessly droning on about some cult ideology. Repeat after me, says dear leader. Fine, maybe you want to be in a cult. So be it. But just acknowledge you're in a cult. You are one of the creepy weirdos. The rest of us, we're going to get by just fine, disagreeing on some things, agreeing on others, minding our own business and telling you to screw off with your cult garbage. And that in 50 years, your cult will no longer exist because you're sterilizing your own kids. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.